Good morning. Morning, everyone. We may have a few more
Good
people
morning.
joining us. Well, good morning. Happy Friday. Thank you for participating in the Women of Color Task Force 41st Annual Career Conference. You're in the Leveraging LinkedIn to Level Up Your Career workshop with guest speaker Tristan Layfield from Career Clarity Solutions. Tristan Layfield is a career coach and a resume writer that has helped over 1,000 people identify and leverage their unique value proposition to transition their careers. His practice, rooted in personal leadership and self-advocacy, helps empower job seekers to effectively communicate their value to attract their ideal jobs and employers. With his work featured on a major platform such as LinkedIn, Business Insider, Black Enterprise, and The Muse, Tristan aims to help job seekers build professional brands that transform their mindset and job search. Welcome, Tristan. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and expertise with all of us this morning.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Please feel free to include any questions in the chat box. Now I'll turn it back over.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Glory B. I really appreciate that great introduction. Hello, everybody. Let me go ahead and get the presentation up here. So if you are not here for the Leveraging LinkedIn to Level Up workshop, you may be in the wrong spot. So quickly check and make sure this is where you intended to be. But if this is where you intended to be, I appreciate you coming and joining me. Hello, hello. I see everybody in the chat box. I appreciate you all being very, very active here. I love being engaged with the people that we're talking to online. It makes it a lot easier for me. So, as Glory V said in that great introduction that she gave me, my name is Tristan Layfield. I'm the owner and head career coach at Career Clarity Solutions, and I've helped quite a few people land the roles that they've been seeking or build the brands that they are building. You can see on screen a little bit about some of my most recent positions held with Fortune 500 companies. One of the places that's not listed on here because it isn't technically a Fortune 500 is I also used to work for the university, graduated from the university as well. So it's nice to be back here to share this information with you all. Go Blue. Now, what are we going to talk about today? When it comes to LinkedIn, I'm a big proponent of LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn all the time. And one of the things that I know about LinkedIn is that many professionals know they need to be on it, but they don't know how to actually build a all-star profile and how to really leverage it to engage in some way, shape, or form. And so we're going to talk about the three main focus areas of the platform. We're going to go through a couple of LinkedIn facts to make sure you sort of understand what's going on the platform. We're also going to talk about how to get an all-star profile and what actually is an all-star profile by LinkedIn standards. We're also going to talk a little bit about engaging strategically on the platform. So one of the things that many people often forget or don't know about LinkedIn is that having a great profile is only half the battle. Engaging on the profile is incredibly important to make sure that you are getting yourself out there. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that strategically. We're going to talk about creating content on the platform for those of you who may be trying to boost your own professional brand. Some of you might be able or starting businesses or have businesses. You want to know how to create content on the platform in order to increase your visibility. And then the last thing, we'll talk a little bit about informational interviews, but that's not going to be the biggest focus of what we're doing here. So let's go in and real quick, I just want to do a quick icebreaker, test the water, see if y'all are awake this morning with me. So we're going to do a little bit of a word association activity. And what I want you all to do is tell me the first thing that comes to mind when you see the words on the screen. Now, in order to avoid a little bit of chaos, we got quite a few people on the call today. I'm going to ask that you keep it in the chat, okay? I want you to write in the chat the first thing that comes to mind when you see these words. So the first word is job. What comes to mind when you see the word job on your screen? Work, security. I like that one, Stephanie. Okay, work. Ugh. Okay, money. Yes, pay. Okay, team, money. Okay, we got quite a few things inside of here. Purpose, passion. Okay. What about career? What comes to mind when you hear the word career? Long-term, purpose, joy, important job. Okay, higher ed, security, longevity, purpose. Got it. Okay. Dream job. Oh, interesting, Nima. We have to talk about that dream job. Uh, I'm a firm believer that dream jobs don't exist. There are ideal jobs for your current situation, right? But I don't dream of labor. So that's why I say that. But brand, what about brand? Elevator speech, first impression, what I'm selling, pandering. Oh, okay, Michelle. Logo, color, marketing, who you are, unique, stand for. Okay. These are all really great things, right? And so the reason I bring these things up, and next one's going to be LinkedIn. What do you think when you think about LinkedIn? And it's going to be the last word we go through. Network, professional, business, network, virtual network, professional. Okay, we're sort of all on the same page. Connection. So the reason I bring these up is these are all words that have to obviously do with the space that we're going to be operating in, right? LinkedIn. And I always like to get people's mindsets of where they are when they hear these type of words. And I think especially with the LinkedIn one, it's incredibly important to understand where you all are because some people understand LinkedIn in different ways, right? So I wanted to sort of get a good understanding where we are now. And we're going to do this one more time at the end. Now, let's talk a little bit about what is LinkedIn. Now, some of you, I would assume, or maybe the majority of you, probably already know what LinkedIn is, but for those of you who don't, right? LinkedIn is the largest professional social networking platform. It has 830 million users worldwide. And honestly, this number, I got it a few months ago from LinkedIn themselves. I would assume that that number is actually higher at this point. It's been continually climbing. So we have almost near a billion people on this platform. That's 1/8 of the human population on this platform, right? That's quite a few people. There's also over 14 million open jobs posted on the platform, and 87% of recruiters regularly use LinkedIn. And so, if 87% of recruiters regularly use LinkedIn, and we want to find a job, this is probably the place that we want to be, right? If the majority of the people who are giving jobs are existing there, we need to exist there too. Now, when we think about LinkedIn, there's really three areas that you want to focus on. First is going to be your profile. Before you get started on anything else inside of LinkedIn, you need to build a profile that's going to communicate a message, right? The reason we're talking about things like jobs and careers, you have to have a good understanding of what you've done to convey a message on your profile. Second is engagement. Now, I don't know if any of you are like me, and you can let me know. You got your LinkedIn and you go on there, you lurk on everybody else's stuff, right? But you're not actually engaging. You're not commenting, or you might like, but that's about it, right? We need to actually get out there and do some meaningful and thoughtful engagement. It's going to help boost us on the platform, and we'll talk about how later. And then the last thing is going to be content creation. So not only do we need to have a great profile or engage on the platform, we also need to start creating our own content because LinkedIn is a place where you start to build your own professional brand. You start to tell people what to think about you, right? And that content that you create is going to be an incredibly important piece in doing so. Now, before we get into the actual profile and what it all entails, how you can get to what's deemed all-star status, you have to understand that LinkedIn has multiple profile strength levels, right? So there's a beginner, an intermediate, advanced, expert, all-star. And so as you can see right here on the right, there is an image on the screen that is basically the strength level of a profile. LinkedIn puts this on your profile, and it shows you that there's 6 out of 7 done on this particular profile, and they have one more step to complete all-star status. So if you do not see this bar on your profile, you may already actually be at all-star status. But if you do see it on your profile, then you might have a few more steps to go in order to achieve that. Now, when we say all-star status, what am I actually talking about here? Excuse me, I didn't mean to advance there. What am I actually talking about here? Well, LinkedIn determines an all-star profile by the amount of sections that someone has completed on their profile. And there's a certain number of sections that you need to complete in order to achieve that all-star profile. But people who do achieve the all-star profile, according to LinkedIn's data, can receive up to 40 times more profile views than those that are not all-star profiles. So it's incredibly important that no matter where you fall on this spectrum, that you're always trying to strive to achieve that all-star status. It's going to incredibly increase your visibility on the platform. Now, real quick, I'm going to go into some LinkedIn facts here. And it's incredibly important for you to understand these too. So all-star profiles are 40 times more likely to receive job opportunities. That's one of the things that we were talking about. But the other number that was really surprising to me, as somebody who works with people on LinkedIn, only 51% of users have fully completed profiles. And you're probably like, well, why'd you use the word only? Because that's technically a majority, right? Well, the reason I use only is because this number surprised me. I reached out to my contacts at LinkedIn to have a little bit more of an understanding of this number. And when it comes to the Americas, only about somewhere between 25 to 30% of users have an all-star profile on LinkedIn in the United States, right? So that number is incredibly lower. LinkedIn has a very large user base in Asia, in Southeast Asia, and they are incredibly serious in those countries about making sure they have all-star profiles. So they drive this number up. But unfortunately, on our end, we're on the lower end. So you actually are going to stand out much more in the United States if you have an all-star profile. And there are 8 sections that you need to fill out to achieve all-star status. Even though LinkedIn has upwards of 20 plus sections that you can have on your LinkedIn, there's only 8 of them that are required for all-star status. And we're going to talk about those 8 today, okay? Now, as I'm about to get through the rest of this content, I want to make sure I tell you, if there's anything you have questions on, anything that you want to dive a little bit deeper in, have any particular, you want a little bit more nuance on, don't hesitate to pop in the chat. I want to answer your questions as we go. If there's something you have a question on, I want to make sure we get to it immediately. So don't hesitate to put those questions in the chat for me. Now, let's move into that all-star profile status. So the first thing that you need in order to achieve an all-star profile is you need a profile picture, right? Now, we need to have a profile picture because according to LinkedIn's data, profile pictures get you up to 21 times more profile views, right? Also, this is a professional social networking site. Think about all the social networking sites that we were on, right? If somebody doesn't have a profile picture or they have the standard profile picture up, we're like, oh, who is that? That's a troll, right? That's sort of what we think about when it comes to social media. So we shouldn't be on LinkedIn without a profile photo. We want to make sure that it's something that is high quality. We don't want anything that's grainy, something that looked like it was taken on a flip phone, in the early 2000s. It's not going to work, okay? We need to get something a little bit more high quality than that. We want it to be well lit. We want to be professionally dressed. I'm gonna take a quick sidebar here. When I talk about professionally dressed, I am saying whatever that means for you. Right? I am not a subscriber to professionalism in the traditional sense. So whatever that means for you, however you want to represent yourself is how I want you to be dressed inside of your profile photo. And then we want to make it inviting, right? We want to smile. We're not mean mugging anybody in these profile photos. We want to invite people in. So make sure that you do something that's inviting. Advice, read the banner photo. It's going to be a landscape photo. My career involves teaching / communicating about environmental issues. That's a really, really great question, Amelia. So banner photos are not required to have an all-star profile, but I recommend that you do have them if just because it is one of the first things that people see when they come to your profile, and it helps your profile stand out. Amelia, I think since you are teaching and communicating about environmental issues, a landscape photo is incredibly appropriate for what you're doing. Absolutely. And I'm gonna, at one point, I will show you some of the banners and some of the profiles that I've created as well. Don't be afraid to also take those images, maybe your landscape photo, pop it in Canva, and maybe do a little creation on top, build on top of it, maybe put something about the areas that you study or whatever the case may be. And I'll show you a little bit of that a little bit later, but that's a really great question. Now, back to the profile photos here. So one of the things that I also tell people, if you are able to go to a professional photographer and get your photo done, great. But all of us may not have the coins to be able to do that, right? Or the time to be able to do that. And that's completely fine. Most of us have really great smartphones nowadays that have really good cameras on them with portrait mode that blurs out the background, right? So what I tell most of my clients is go outside in front of some trees, in front of some buildings with a friend or a coworker or a partner, and have them take a couple photos of you from sort of mid waist up using your smartphone with portrait mode on. And usually those photos work very well for a social media platform like LinkedIn. They actually tend to be a lot more relatable than the standard sort of headshots that we do that can be in front of the just white or blue sort of sterile backgrounds. Phyllis says, I saw on Poshmark, so I have a photo backdrop and took a photo there in nice business dress. Phyllis, that works perfectly, 100%. The other reason that I tell people go outside, go in front of some trees or some buildings is because it gives your background a little bit of texture as well, which helps your picture pop a little bit more on the platform, right? We have a lot of executives that use the pictures that are just taken at work and they're the sterile white and blue background. So by doing something a little bit different, it once again helps you stand out, okay? Now, the next section that's required for your profile is your headline. Your headline is the thing that's right below your name on your profile. And this is an incredibly important piece of landscape when it comes to your profile, simply because number one, it is search optimized, right? Meaning it is one of the places that the platform searches when people are looking for certain keywords or phrases. So it's incredibly important that it's not only interesting and enticing, but that it has the right keywords or phrases inside of it, right? The other thing is your headline follows you across the platform. When you're commenting, when you're messaging, in the My Network section, if people are trying to figure out if they want to connect with you, all of those places, your headline is incredibly visible. So we want to make sure that it entices people to come and read your profile. And that's actually the formula that I utilize. That's the acronym I use, which is READ, R-E-A-D. And what it stands for is role, expertise, and actionable difference. So here's an example that you'll see right below. This is actually an example that I had when I was still in corporate. So I was a regional supervisor at Thermo Fisher Scientific. And I was an operations guy. I poked holes in everything. I helped streamline processes, procedures. I was even on a global committee to help standardize our processes across our organization. And so operational efficiency was my expertise. And I said that my actionable difference is that I developed and optimized standard operating procedures to achieve organizational goals, right? So I got a couple of keywords inside of here: operational efficiency, standard operating procedures, organizational goals. All those things were things that were keywords for where I was at the time, right? So it's incredibly important that you understand the keywords or phrases that are really important for the area that you are in, right? So for example, Amelia said earlier that her career involves teaching or communicating about environmental issues. She might want to make sure that those key environmental issues that she really cares about or speaks about often might be mentioned somewhere inside of her headline so people can find her for that, right? So just think about the things that set you apart and also the things that help you utilize to make a difference, make an impact, create value for the company or organization that you work for. Okay? Now, the third thing, and these are quite possibly the most easy part of getting an all-star status, it's your industry and location. Now, these are important too because many recruiters narrow down their searches utilizing industry and location because they like proximity-based searches or looking for people in specific industries. So it's incredibly important that you choose an industry that speaks to what you do. You also need to add your country zip code and your country and zip code, and it says and industry. So I do apologize, I made a bit of a typo there. But you want to add your country and zip code, and it's going to allow you to choose a location. Now, what LinkedIn will do when you put your zip code in, let's just say you live in Waterford, Michigan. And what LinkedIn will do, you put your zip code in, it'll give you two options for a location. It'll give you Waterford, Michigan, and it'll give you Detroit metropolitan area. I always recommend that you utilize the metropolitan area on the platform, simply because it's going to get your profile more hits and more views, right? And people are probably not looking at Waterford, Michigan as often as they are looking at Detroit metropolitan area. right? So just make sure that you go ahead and choose that metro area. Lisa says, how would you approach read if your career has been really broad slash multidisciplinary? Should actual difference just focus on current role or previous or the one you hope to get? That's a really great question, Lisa. Now, if you are looking for a new role, your actionable difference should really focus on how your transferable skills will help the company or help the organization or help the clients at that company or organization that you're trying to get to, right? How will you help that future company create value? If you are just sort of good at where you currently are, then you focus on how you are creating a difference or creating value or results or impact in your current role. But if it is something you're looking forward to in the future, then I would absolutely focus on how your skill set will help you create results in that future role. Really great question, Lisa. Next, your summary. Now, this is another important part, and many people skip this because we all talk about not liking to talk about ourselves, okay? And I get it, I understand it. But there's one place you should be very confident in talking about yourself. It's about your career and your advancement. Nobody else is going to do that for you. You have to do it for yourself. So we need to create a summary that is engaging. And it's important because it's also search optimized as well. So this is another area that the platform looks at when people search for keywords or phrases. Now, when it comes to the summary, there's a recommendation on the screen here. It's just for people who are having a little bit of an issue thinking through what their summary looks like. But what I would tell you is if there's some people that you really admire on the platform, go and look at their summary. How do they write those things? What do they mention, right? The one thing you want to keep in mind, I always recommend that you write your summary in first person. We're not writing it like a bio. This is still a social network, right? This is a social media platform. People know that you more than likely wrote that bio. So doing it in third person can sometimes come off a little haughty. It can come off a little weird, right? So we want it to be in first person. One thing that I've been recommending for a lot of my clients who really struggle in figuring out how to write summaries and things about themselves, most of you may have heard about a new tool called ChatGPT. It's an AI tool. You can Google it, ChatGPT. And it's basically a tool you can input information, ask it to do things. So you can ask it to write a LinkedIn summary for a data analyst who does X, Y, and Z and has this type of skills and blah, blah, blah. And it'll come back with a summary for you. That's a really great tool to use as a basis, right? Now, I'm not telling you to copy and paste what ChatGPT wrote for you. I'm telling you to use it as a nice basis, go in and modify it and make it, you. But if you really struggle with writing a summary, that can be a great thought partner in how to get one done for you. But your summary is important because it is your introduction to the LinkedIn world. And we want to make sure those keywords or phrases are inside of there. Next is your experience. This is another search optimized area, meaning that the things that you write in your description are going to be searched through. Now, it's incredibly important for you to have a current position and 2 prior positions on your LinkedIn. Now, I think LinkedIn might have changed this not too long ago for all-star status. I think they may have dropped the current position requirement due to the pandemic and a lot of people losing their jobs. They didn't want people to lose their all-star status. But if you do have a current position, we do want to have it on there because LinkedIn profiles with current positions increase profile views up to 29 times and are discovered 16 times more by recruiters. So it's incredibly important to have your current position on there because recruiters prefer what they call passive candidates, right? Which is essentially people who already have jobs. And think about it. I know that sounds incredibly messed up, and it is. I'm not here to necessarily pass judgment on it, but it's in the best interest of a company to hire people with the most skills, and the most qualified, skilled person typically are people who already have jobs, right? Their skills are in demand, so they're already wanted by companies and organizations. So having a current position helps you get more views. Now, the other thing I'll tell you about your experience section, when you write your description, I like to still break those up into bullet point formats as much as I can inside of there. Now, LinkedIn does not allow you to format in bullet points, so you would have to copy and paste the bullet point from, let's just say, Wikipedia online somewhere, whatever the case may be. But I do that because Once again, this is a social media site. We know that people's attention spans are low for the most part. So we want to make sure it's as engaging as possible, as digestible as possible, and breaking it up into bullet point format helps do that. Just make sure that you aren't also writing an entire book here. We don't want to put your entire history here. You want enough to entice people. What I tell everyone is, if you cannot, sort of revamp your experience to put it on LinkedIn, copy and pasting from your resume is better than having nothing on there, 100%. But there's some things we share on resumes that we don't necessarily need to share in the public sphere. So editing our things can be useful. Think about your LinkedIn as like an appetizer. It should whet the palate, right? And make recruiters want to reach out to you for your resume, which gives them the full meal. Right? Think of it that way, for sure. We don't want to overwhelm people with information in this experience section. Next is also your skills section. Now, this is another search optimizer of the platform, meaning it helps you be found. You need at least 5 skills in this section. You can have up to 50. And I recommend you get as close to 50 as you possibly can. Now, you want to include skills you're good at, and you want to include keywords for the space you're in or the space you're trying to get into. Usually those keywords are inside of the job descriptions, right? Now, one of the things I'll tell you, when you go to do your skill section, you're going to start typing in a skill, and it's going to bring up a drop-down option. Always choose the skill from the drop-down option, because when people are searching for that skill using LinkedIn's tools, they're going to use LinkedIn's drop-down options when they're searching. So you want to make sure that you utilize the options that are inside of LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn will allow you to put your own skill there if they don't have it in the drop-down. You can absolutely add your own skill, especially if you're in sort of a niche area. There's a possibility that that skill may not be on LinkedIn just yet. That's fine. But for the overarching, like, broader skill, like if you're putting project management, that's definitely a skill that's listed in the dropdown. Choose it from that dropdown option. Next is education. Now, this is pretty simple. You want your diploma or degree title, your field of study, your school name, and your graduation year is optional. So if you don't have it on your resume, you likely don't want to put it on your LinkedIn. That probably defeated the purpose of why you've taken it off of your resume. So make sure we're consistent across the board. The other thing is with your degree title. Once again, choose from LinkedIn's drop-down options. LinkedIn likes your degree title to be represented in a certain way. And when people might narrow down their searches using education, once again, they're going to use those drop-down options. So please make sure to use those wherever you can. And then the last section, and I'm breezing through these ones because I think most of you have these things done. But just to give you a little bit more insight, I wanted to make sure we got through them. The next thing is connections. So you need at least 50 connections to have an all-star profile. And the thing that you see here with the 3, so there's 3 types of people that I suggest that you connect with when you are on your job search. The first being people who work at companies or organizations you want to work at. The second being people who hold titles you want to hold. And the third being people who are 1 to 2 levels above where you want to be. Right? So in those 3 categories, it does a couple of things for you. First and foremost, it tailors your homepage. So you start to see more relevant content for what you want to do, where you want to be, which means you're more likely to engage with it because it's relevant to you, right? And when we connect with those 3 types of people, we start to engage with their stuff. We start to build organic relationships on the platform. And these could be people who could provide you a referral into the organization. And referrals make you 15 times more likely to land an interview than just applying online. These could be people who are decision makers at companies and organizations. They could say, I want to talk to that person, or pull their application, right? So it's incredibly important we start to build those organic relationships. But also what happens is, on LinkedIn, the law of reciprocity is pretty real, meaning that if you comment and like people's stuff fairly often, they're more likely to come and comment and like and share your stuff as well. Well, on LinkedIn, anytime you like or comment on something, your entire network sees that. So if you get someone who works at the company you want to work at, who's 1 to 2 levels above where you want to be, who holds titles that you want to hold, if you get them to comment and like on your stuff, you are now getting in front of their entire network, which is usually people inside of the industry and space that you want to be in, right? So you start to expand your horizons and get in front of more people and to raise your visibility. Thank you, Shara. I see that is true. Thank you. Now I see this question from Amelia. What is your advice about when to remove the graduation year? I have some recent degrees and some degrees from decades ago. That's a really great question. So for me, I'm going to give you two pieces of advice here. I'm gonna go from my incredibly privileged stance first and foremost, which is I like to lean into the very things that I think companies or organizations are going to discriminate against me for. Whether that is my age, whether that's the fact that I have natural hair, whether that's the fact that you're a woman or whatever the case may be. I like to lean into those things personally because I think that that's my way of being able to weed out companies and organizations that I would not feel comfortable existing in, that I would not be able to fully show up as myself in, right? But I understand that's an incredibly privileged space to exist in because we don't want to get ourselves in a situation where, sometimes we need a job and we're counted out because of these certain things. So I'll never fault anybody for playing the game they need to play if they need to pay their bills. But personally, I think leaning into those things throughout the job search actually will help you find the place that you're supposed to be. So that's my first incredibly privileged stance when I'm talking about this. But taking the privilege out of that, if you're somebody who's worried about this, then typically I say that, once you get more than 5 years removed from your degree program, it's fine to go ahead and start dropping those dates off. Honestly, one of the pieces of advice that I give to a lot of people in general is to just not include it, no matter if you're a recent grad or not. Because sometimes what happens is age discrimination happens on both ends of the spectrum. It's not just about being older, but it's also sometimes about being younger and them thinking don't have enough experience or the ability to do the job as well. So, to fully answer the question, it's incredibly personal depending on your situation. And I don't think there's any one right way to do this. It's all about sort of what your personal mindset is with it there. But that's what I would recommend is after about 5 years, you can go ahead and drop it off. Personally, I leave all of my stuff on because if you want to try and calculate my age illegally, feel free to do so. You'll know how you'll know the estimate. If you don't like it, that's fine by me too. Don't choose me. I'm good with that. And then I see skills. Lisa says, should you remove old ones that aren't relevant to your current work/identity? Hesitation to jettison those old endorsements. Lisa, I get it about the endorsements, but I'll guarantee you that by adding more recent and relevant skills, you're going to get much more return on the right people viewing your page. I know endorsements are important because they do have an impact on your search positioning for certain skill sets. But if they are old skills that have nothing to do with where you're trying to go, you're being found for the wrong things. And so those endorsements really don't matter at the end of the day if they're for the wrong skills. So I'd go ahead and update those skills to make sure that you're being found for the right thing. Do you need to review your skills and degree title as the LinkedIn algorithm updates? So the skills, not as much. The skills tend to be fairly consistent. I would go in and review things like the degree titles. So since I've been on LinkedIn, LinkedIn has changed the way they like to represent degrees 3 different times. So there's a possibility that they may update it again. So I would go back and look at those ever so often just to see if those change. The other thing that you could also look at is your job title on LinkedIn. They do have drop downs for job titles as well. And sometimes they are adding new ones. Well, they're adding new ones all the time. So sometimes your actual job title may not be there and it'll eventually show up, whatever the case may be. So those would probably be the 2 main areas that I would suggest looking at. Do you find these strategies still work within a university structure here, like here at Michigan? I do find that it tends to still work in a university structure because one of the things that happens, especially at a university like Michigan's so incredibly large that people still don't know everybody that works on campus and what they do and how they do it. Do I think that Michigan recruiters are utilizing the platform more than any other recruiters? No, probably not. But I do know that they do exist there. And I do know that many recruiters and hiring managers, even if they aren't utilizing LinkedIn to source candidates, they do still go and look at your LinkedIn or look for your LinkedIn throughout the process, even if it's in a university setting. So I do think that it's incredibly important to utilize LinkedIn in a smart way just because of that. And I do think that even with the like who you should connect with, I think it still works at Michigan, right? If you're in Trotter and you're trying to now move over to working, in the pathology department, right? Those people probably don't even know who you are right now. So you probably want to add people who hold titles there, who are 1 to 2 levels above where you want to be, to start building those connections so they can get familiar with you and your name. What are your thoughts on upgrading to a premium account? It's a really great question. So as someone who is a LinkedIn top voice and also a part of LinkedIn's creators program, LinkedIn would probably kill me if they heard me say this, but I am not a very big fan of their premium accounts, simply because I think that they charge far too much for what they are giving. I do think that throughout a job search, it can be useful because LinkedIn's premium accounts gives you quite a few more insights into things that can help you and allows you to message people that you aren't fully connected with. So I think in those instances, it can be worth paying while you're on the search. But beyond that, in all honesty, for the everyday person, I wouldn't recommend that you keep a premium account on auto pay. Personally. And now don't tell LinkedIn I said that, even though they already know that I feel that way. But don't tell LinkedIn I said that because they're gonna be mad at me. Okay, so now moving to the next thing real quick. I want to talk to you about some job seeking settings because LinkedIn has some settings that can help you out as a job seeker that many people do not know about. So someone has unmuted. I hear a little bit of background noise. If you can mute your mic for me, I would greatly appreciate it. Oh, okay, no, I lied. That is not somebody. That is my video. That's hilarious. Okay, I didn't know that it recorded the audio when I did that screenshot anyway. We won't show LinkedIn. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. Keep it under wraps. It's just for us here. Okay, so one of the first job seeking settings is called share your profile when you click apply. So on LinkedIn, you can actually go to their job posting board, right? And on their job posting board, there's 2 ways to apply to a job. The first is in Easy Apply, which is essentially it uses your LinkedIn profile. You upload a resume, you provide them contact information, and boom, that's your job application. The second way to apply to a job online is the standard sort of apply button that takes you from LinkedIn to the company's website, right? Now, this setting applies to that second option that takes you from LinkedIn to the company's website. If you have this setting on, the moment you click the apply button, it would automatically share your profile with the person who posted the job, no matter if you applied to the job or not. So the idea here is that if you apply to the job, hopefully it would help your application get pulled quicker, right? If you don't apply to the job, we all know that recruiters and hiring managers are often filling multiple roles. So sometimes you'll go and look at a job and you're like, it's not necessarily for me. But if they get your profile and it fits, your skill sets fit some other roles that they have available, there's a chance that they may reach out to you to see if you're interested in applying to that role. Right now, when I speak to recruiters and hiring managers and people in talent acquisition, the only downside that I found to turning on this setting is that when you are pressing the apply button, if you do that for every job that a company or organization has posted, you look like you don't have any direction, right? So that's the only downside I've found in speaking to the professionals inside of the talent acquisition space here. So if you understand, you know exactly where you are going to be going, what type of jobs you want, you're pretty, cognizant of where you're clicking apply, then turn this setting on so that way it starts sending your profile when you click apply. You can see this how to access it here, how to turn it on. I'm going to play this video. There may be a little noise. I didn't know it was recording while I was sitting in my co-working space, but I'll play this video real quick. It shows you go down to your Oh, this is the open to video. This is the wrong video. Change the video for all of them. My apologies. Give me 1 second. I want to see if I can get the right video up here for you all. Yeah, so okay, it's not going to give me the right video, but you can follow the instructions that I put on the slide here. You just go to the little me button, you go to settings and privacy, you go to data privacy, and then you go to scroll down to job seeking preferences, and you'll see the setting. It looks just like it does right here at the top. Now the next thing is signal your interest to recruiters at companies you created job alerts for. So when you go to a company page on LinkedIn, every company page has a jobs tab, and that's where their job postings live. But the first thing you're going to see when you go to that jobs tab is a set job alerts button that you can set. So you can go in there, you can say the title that you're interested in, the location you're interested in, and if you want to do on-site, hybrid, or remote work. Now, when you have this setting on, the moment you go ahead and hit um, set job alert in any of those things, it would notify recruiters at that company that you've created job alerts for that you're interested in working there. So it's a nice tool to have on. You once again get to control who sees this or who you interact with, because it's based on the job alerts that you set for companies. When I speak to recruiters and hiring managers, there's no real downside to this setting at this point. From that I can conclude when I'm speaking to talent acquisition professionals. And then the last one is called open to work. Now, this is a setting that allows you to tell recruiters and hiring managers that you are open to opportunities in your field. Now, this is what the video that magically ate up all of my other videos, this is what it shows you how to do. So if you go to your profile, you can go open to finding a new job, and you're able to fill out this form here. And so that will allow you to then list up to 5 job titles you're interested in, up to 5 locations you're interested in, the type of workplace, on-site, hybrid, or remote, the start date, immediately or flexible. I typically recommend you always choose flexible. Remember, recruiters and hiring managers prefer passive candidates. And then the type of work that you're interested in, full-time, contract, part-time, internship, or temporary. So this open to work setting is really nice. It helps you show up in recruiter searches matching your career interests, but there is a caveat here. There's 2 ways to turn it on, for all of LinkedIn and for recruiters only. I never recommend that you turn it on for all of LinkedIn. It puts a green open to work banner on your profile photo, and it comes off a little desperate. And remember, recruiters and hiring managers prefer passive candidates. So what I tend to turn on is for the recruiters only. There's still a caveat here. LinkedIn says they do their best to make sure that your current employer does not see that you're open to opportunities, but they cannot guarantee it, right? Meaning that if you turn this on and someone in your department has a recruiter profile and they come to your page, it is likely that they will see that you are open to work. Personally, I think that's great. Let's keep everybody on their toes, right? And let them know you got some skills that are wanted out there on the market. But we also know that some people work in spaces with very, revenge-filled and spiteful bosses that can try to make work very difficult for you if they see those type of things. We know that that's retaliation in the workplace, and if you can in any way, shape, or form improve that, I would absolutely suggest that you file a complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, because technically your employer should not be able to do anything once they see this. But we also know that even though it's a technical thing, it's not something that actually always happens, right? People can sometimes be a little bit vengeful or spiteful. So be mindful of that. If you have a leader that's incredibly, invested in your advancement and they want to make sure that you're looking out for you, they're not going to care that you turn this on. So it's totally up to you how you do this, but just be mindful of the fact that your employer could potentially see it. Okay, let's see, any questions in the chat? Nothing so far. Perfect. Now let's talk a little bit about engagement on LinkedIn. This isn't going to take too long, but um, engagement starts with you. I always tell people this. So you can't expect that people are going to automatically start to engage with your stuff once you start posting. That's really not how it works all the time, right? Your friends, your colleagues, people who know you might come and give you a like or so, but you need to start engaging with other people on the platform in order for you to start getting the engagement that you want. So, like, comment, share. You can see on the right side here, this image. These are the different ways that you can like something on LinkedIn. So there's the like, celebrate, care, love, insightful, and funny. Those are all great, but we know that it only takes 2 seconds to like something. Comments are really king on the platform. Commenting is something that, number one, will get you seen. It goes down in the LinkedIn comments. I'm telling y'all, for real. Like, I did a comment on one lady's post. She's really big on LinkedIn. And next thing I know, there were 45 replies to my comment, which just continued to boost my visibility because the conversations happen in the comments. And when you comment, like I said, your entire network sees that. But also, LinkedIn loves when you comment on the platform, and it actually helps boost your profile visibility on the platform by you commenting and engaging with other people's things. I'm telling you, comments are king on this platform. They're even higher than sharing somebody's stuff. So literally in the algorithm, if you want to start getting more visibility, it's all about commenting, and not just the congratulations, or that's so nice, right? Really thoughtful comments. You want to take the time to think about, okay, how can I add to this conversation, or what type of unique viewpoint do I have here, or what are my feelings on this? And I know sometimes we get a little apprehensive because our bosses might be on here, or our future bosses might be on here. So obviously discern what you want to engage with and not, but you do need to engage. It's incredibly important. The other thing you want to do is you want to curate your timeline. So follow industry leaders and influencers. So, like I said, I was a LinkedIn top voice in 2020, and LinkedIn top voices are essentially influencers on the platform. Every year, LinkedIn puts out a list of the top 10 people driving conversations in different spaces. So they have a list for people in higher education, if that's what you're interested in. They have a list for frontline healthcare. They have a list for jobs and career searches. They have a list for technology and AI. They have a list, the list go on and on. If you literally Google LinkedIn top voice 2023 or 2020, that will make sure that you're able to see sort of what's going on there. And you can see some of the influencers that you're able to follow. The other thing, follow relevant hashtags. So hashtags are a thing on LinkedIn. You can follow them. It's also really nice because if you follow hashtags that are directly related to your career field, people usually utilize those in job postings and things as well. So you'll start to see a little bit more of those. And then, like I talked about earlier, the law of reciprocity is incredibly real here. So it's, starting out with you engaging with somebody else, they're more likely to come and engage with you. So Shira said, it would be nice if you could block specific people from seeing open to hire. I completely agree, Shira. I actually mentioned that to my contact at LinkedIn. So when I said I don't like LinkedIn, they know it. I have like 32 tickets open with them right now because of things on their platforms and things I want them to change. So that's actually one of them. So I completely agree with you, my friend. Can recruiters search for certifications? They can search for certifications, licenses, and education. They can narrow down for that 100%. That is a great question, Eric. Now, we already talked about what that does. So we're going to move on real quick to content creation because I do want to leave a few minutes for Q&A at the end here as well. So before we talk about creating content, I think it's incredibly important that you understand the 4 types of content creators on the LinkedIn platform. So the first are the visionaries. These are people who are incredibly industry focused. They're usually looking at trends and predictions inside of the space. They're giving their opinions on those trends and predictions and different commentary, right? These are people who are, yes, they may work at, let's just say, Apple, but they're focused on the bigger, larger tech trends of all those things. Maybe, yes, you work at the University of Michigan, but you're really focused on higher education and systemic issues inside of that. Those are the type of visionaries that are on the platform here. Next are the evangelists. These are people incredibly brand focused, right? So company culture and values, tech trends, innovations, philanthropy. They're talking about all those things that their organization are doing, or the values that they espouse. And these are people who really are just really brand focused. Like, I see a lot of people from Target on LinkedIn that are evangelists. They're always talking about Target, what's going on at Target, how they're bringing in this people, and how they're doing this in the community. I see that a lot from them. But there's a lot of people like that for the university as well. I would say that President Ono, he's an evangelist for the University of Michigan. He's always talking about the culture and the values of Michigan, and what innovations they have, and where Michigan's giving money and doing things right. He's an evangelist in that way. But he also plays into all four of these. Everybody does at some point. The next one are guides. These are people who are incredibly product focused. So maybe they're the face of a product, or their subject matter expertise. And they're usually showing people about those products, new innovations with those products, FAQs, how to use them, demonstrations, all those type of things. So those are the people who are really, really zoned in on the products that their companies or organizations are selling. And then the last one are the mentors. These are people who are incredibly people focused. This is where I tend to fall most of the time, giving career advice, leadership tips, personal growth, right? These are the people who are really just mentoring and helping people advance in some way. Now, the reason I like to show these things is because you want to figure out where the majority of your content will lie when you are creating content on the platform. Now, the reason I say majority is because you're going to, at some point in time, fall into every single one of these categories when you create content. But you want to have a consistent core content that you provide. And so, like me, right? I'm consistently a mentor. I'm providing career advice and leadership tips and personal growth stuff, but I'm also an evangelist in a way, because I run my own business. So I'm always talking about my business and what we're doing and how we're doing presentations for free here and working with people on resumes and who are incarcerated and this, that, and the other, right? I'm also a visionary. I'm always looking at the trends, what's going on in industry, what's going on in the job search market, right? Really focus into that. So I'm not saying that you always fall into one category, but one category is your main bread and butter most of the time for successful content creators on the platform, okay? Now, when we talk about branding through content, there's tons of different types of posts that you're able to make on LinkedIn. It's incredibly important you understand this. So there's text posts where you just write text, obviously. There's text and images, which is what you see on the right-hand side here. We'll talk about that in a moment. There's text and videos. There's articles. There's news articles, meaning you can bring them in from large platforms. So MSNBC, CNN, Fox, whatever is your cup of tea. And then there's newsletters. You can create a newsletter on the platform. So depending on sort of what you're doing, you might want to choose one or the other, but any good content creator on the platform does a variation of all of these things. They don't stick to one area. And the important thing to remember is that when you are creating posts, you want to do things like tag organizations, tag people. So you'll see here, this person went to the National Black MBA Association conference. And so they tagged the National Black MBA Association on LinkedIn. They tagged their business school. They tagged their awesome advisor, right? And so now what happens is National Black MBA Association is going to get a notification that they've been tagged in this post. And what's going to happen is they love good publicity, so they're probably going to reshare this. Well, National Black MBA Association has over 50,000 followers on LinkedIn. So if they reshare her conference post, she's now getting in front of 50,000 people who have the potential to potentially help her in her career, right? Who are in the same organization as her, who are likely to give her that referral that makes her 15 times more likely to land interviews, right? So when we're talking about creating content, you want to try and grab attention initially. You'll see on LinkedIn that a lot of people do sort of like this first line that's really attention grabbing, and then there'll be a few spaces before they get to the rest of their posts. That's because they want you to grab the attention. Then they want you to click that see more button. Once you click that see more button, that engagement is enough to boost your post in the algorithm significantly. So you always want to capture attention. You want to try to add value wherever you can. You also want to focus on readability, meaning you don't want to write incredibly large paragraphs in your post. You want to break things up and make it digestible. You want to tag active users, right? So if any of you are taking screenshots or you learned anything from this session and you go to LinkedIn to start posting about what you learned about LinkedIn from me, tag me. I'm somebody, I have almost 9,000 followers on the platform. I'm gonna reshare your stuff. I'm gonna like it. You're gonna get in front of all of those followers. I have more connections than that too. So tag active users that are relevant to what you're doing. Use relevant hashtags. Those help you be found, but make sure you do not go overboard. This is not Instagram, right? So you want to use no more than 3 to 5 relevant hashtags when you're posting. And then unless you are posting an article from a platform, if you are posting any type of link that takes someone from LinkedIn to another website, I suggest that you put it in the comments. LinkedIn monitors posts that have links in them that take people away from their platform, and they deprioritize it in the algorithm. The entire point is to keep people on the platform. So like if I post something and I tell people that to sign up at a certain location, I'm gonna put that link in the comments and tell them, see the link in the comments to sign up. Also, that gets your post more engagement because then they have to go down to the comments. So it's a win-win for everybody. You don't get deprioritized and you get more engagement. So I had to sort of rush a little bit through this because I clearly did not pace enough. Okay, we got about 4 minutes. So I do want to open the floor to see if there are any particular questions on some of the things that I shared or any things that I did not touch on, because there are quite a few other things in LinkedIn. I wanted to get to the essentials for you though. So feel free to put questions in the chat. You can also unmute if you would like. So Latanya said, thoughts on accepting a request from your boss? Full transparency, this was from a previous employer. Appreciate that. So for me, I have never had a boss that I haven't accepted on LinkedIn personally, but you have to know your own boss. If you have a boss that you believe is going to be incredibly in your business, use some of the things that you post or whatever you're doing on the platform against you, that would probably be something that someone that I would not add. You can also block people on LinkedIn. I don't recommend doing that very often. It can be a little messy. But if they are that type of person, I would recommend keeping them off of your profile. You don't want them to use your items against you. Okay, LinkedIn in the comment is a golden tip. Yeah, Eric, I'm telling you, they will deprioritize this. Lisa also says, or accepting requests from people you don't know. So Lisa, the one thing I'll say is LinkedIn is about expanding your network. So I think accepting requests from people you don't know is okay, but be mindful, right? That random man from the Czech Republic that's randomly, asking to be your connection that isn't even in your career field. Okay, probably not the best random person to add, right? But if you're in higher education and somebody comparable, let's just say, at the University of Florida is adding you, but you don't know who they are, it might be beneficial for you to add that person from the University of Florida, right? So I think it's, about using your discernment there for the most part, but I think it's important to accept requests from people you don't know simply because that's the point of the entire platform. What are some tips for deleting your boss from your LinkedIn network? That's a really great question, Debbie. I would have to give you a tutorial on how to do that real quick. Now, before I answer any more questions, I do want to quickly just put this out here. If you scan this QR code, you can go and actually follow me on LinkedIn. Also, you'll see a link at the bottom of the screen. That is actually a link to book a free 30-minute consultation with me. So you can utilize that link. And you can go book a free 30-minute consultation. I'll give you some feedback on some of the things that you want to talk about. We can also talk about services. I help people build their LinkedIn profiles. I do it for them, write resumes, cover letters, do career coaching, all of that type of stuff. So you can always book a free 30-minute consultation. And we have one more question that I saw in here. How often should you be updating and posting? So you should be updating as often as you need to with your profile, right? If you get a new certification or new training or whatever, you want to update that fairly quickly, especially if you're on a job search. Now, as far as posting, LinkedIn gives the recommendations to post twice a day. I do not recommend that. I was a LinkedIn top voice and I didn't post twice a day. What I tell people is the most important thing is to be consistent, right? So if you decide you can only post once a month, then post once a month consistently. LinkedIn rewards consistency in engagement on the platform. If you can do it twice a month, that's fine. Be consistent and then build up from there. So work it into your stuff. Don't make it work against you, right? Don't make it a chore for yourself. Like, I gotta post twice a day, every day on LinkedIn. No, just be consistent. If you're gonna post once a week, make sure you post once a week consistently. And be mindful of when you're posting. Don't post at like midnight on a Saturday, right? So that is going to be the end. We are at the 11 o'clock hour. I know you all have to move on to other things, but if you need more information or you want to talk more about this, please make sure you follow me on LinkedIn, send me a message on LinkedIn, book a consultation. Let's have this conversation. And I appreciate you all joining me. Last question I'm going to ask you to put in the chat. Did I bore you or did you learn something new? That's all I want to know.
Good. It was good. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming. Learn something new. Okay, perfect. Perfect. That's what I love to hear. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you so much for coming to my session.
Thank you, Tristan, for all the information, tips, and recommendations you provided. You have certainly motivated me to get to the all-star profile as soon as possible. We're including Tristan's information, again, is included in the chat box. Make sure to check out his offer to all the workshop participants. I do want to note that our workshop recordings will be available after the conference, so check back on the Women of Color Task Force webpage for updates. I do also want to tell you the Women of Color Task Force Career Conference is just getting warm. Join us at 12 noon for the virtual keynote presentation entitled Women of Color, Rise Through Authenticity Principle with Ritu Bhasin, CEO and founder of Bhasin Consulting, Inc. Check your email for the Zoom link as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being so engaging, everybody.